Hey, so last week there was a Loudwire article about, I think it was, rock songs that are actually creepy. And I saw Nirvana was on the list, so I was thinking it was probably going to be Polly. And I clicked on the story just because I had to. No, it wasn't Polly. It was Drain You. Okay, and I'm going to read you this very brief little snippet they wrote about it. One baby to another says, I'm lucky to have met you. No other Nirvana song sets up its spiel with such a cute couplet. And Drain You is a perfectly poppy, mid-period Nirvana jam from Nevermind that's about as accessible as grunge can get. It's no wonder that the Kurt Cobain-led band shot to superstardom in 1991. After that opening line, though, things take a pretty creepy turn. It is now my duty to completely drain you, Cobain continues. I travel through a tube and end up in your infection. The refrain drives home just how grotesque this tale truly is. Chew your meat for you, pass it back and forth. And that's how that ends. They didn't really explain why that's creepy or grotesque. No, they didn't really explain anything. They just put some lines from the song on that had some kind of words that you could maybe say are creepy, but aren't. And the thing I had a problem with, though, was that all the other songs on the list were, like, about stalkers or men who dated much younger girls. So I don't really think Drain You fit on that list at all. One of the things about Drain You is that I see it having, like, a really sarcastic self-awareness about it. And depending on how you choose, like, the perspective you choose to look at it at, it's really interesting. There's not a lot of other songs that come with that perspective, in my opinion. What I'm about to show you, though, is that there are so many layers to this song, and if you take all the layers together at once, as I said, that just shows me a really great self-awareness. But I do, in fact, see this song being about several types of relationships. So in the end, how I interpret his words in music might actually say more about myself than about him. And I don't presume to know what was in his mind when he wrote it. This is just my own interpretation and how it makes me feel and what it makes me think. We can all have our own opinion of what it means, and none of us are wrong if we can explain it and back it up. Kurt said this was a song about a dorky, old-fashioned kind of love, and I think maybe he meant a love of connection and wholeness. To me, Drain You is a song about a codependent mother-child relationship and how this reflects onto the narrator's unbalanced romantic relationship, causing the birth of a new perspective. I hope you'll stick around because I'm going to try and show you some imagery and metaphors you might not have thought of before. Let's start with the idea of premastication. This means pre-chewing, and is when a parent pre-chews the food for the baby. This might seem disgusting to us, but this is how babies were fed before the invention of baby food. Another name for this is kiss feeding, and is actually a precursor to the human kiss. And kissing is believed to have evolved from relationship-based feeding. Anyway, the idea is that the mother bird will chew the baby bird's food and put it in its mouth because it's unable to do it for itself yet. And this is how it gets its vitamins and nutrients. The really cool thing about this, though, is that Kurt did explore this idea in another song, because in Sliver, he says, had to eat my dinner there, mashed potatoes and stuff like that. I couldn't chew my meat too good. To me, that song is about one of the first times a child is away from his mother. He's on his own and doesn't have his mom to chew his meat for him. For young humans, you rely on your family to cut up your food into small bite-sized pieces so you're better able to handle it. A first love can be difficult to handle if the emotions are too big and you don't know how to manage it yet. And in a codependent relationship, you maybe depend too much on the other person to chew up the things that are too difficult for you to handle on your own. So we have this base image of hungry baby birds needing their mother to feed them. This picture for me is formed by the repeated chorus and the use of the word baby in the opening line. Another cool thing about this song is that it has a kind of a three-dimensional meaning. The meaning is created by more than just the words. It's also the auditory performance of these words that adds depth to them. At the bridge of the song, the word you is just repeated over and over, and there's a squeaking sound. The squeaking sound was actually created by a rubber duck. So we have this ridiculous version of a squawking bird. And if you think of a nest of baby birds, you think of the sound and think of all those little beaks turned up to the sky, squawking and squeaking. Don't you imagine that in bird language, they're saying mother, mother, mother? And in this relationship that the song is about, this person is hungry and needy and crying, you. Well, that's how I see it. One of the many ways you can see the tube that is mentioned in the fourth line would be as the esophagus, connecting the throat to the stomach and bringing the food from the kiss to the butterflies in the stomach feeling. That's almost a sort of sick feeling. In other words, affection, infection, or like an aneurysm, love you so much it makes me sick. Codependency, as defined by Mental Health America, is an emotional and behavioral condition that affects an individual's ability to have a healthy, mutually satisfying relationship. It is also known as relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided, emotionally destructive, and or abusive. And that is where we are right at the beginning of the song. I don't care what you think unless it is about me. From the speaker's perspective, the relationship could be seen as unbalanced, an addiction, or an infection. So draining someone in this sense might call to mind something like an emotional vampire. The vampire needs its victim's life force for sustenance, like the squawking baby birds need their mother to survive. They need the other's time, attention, love, and emotions. It's life-sustaining for them, draining for the other. It's infatuation. The tube mentioned in the fourth line can have many meanings and adds greater depth to the overall song when you consider them all. In this case, the idea of a vampire that's floating around in my mind also makes me think of an IV tube, which makes me think of blood, but also medications. And then we have the word infection as a play on the word affection. It is an infection in the way it takes over a person. And it is an infection in the way an unhealthy love or infatuation isn't mature love. But this relationship is what makes a couple feel good. Like an addiction, the thing you crave is really destroying you. This idea of infatuation and a person as a drug or medication more fully appears in the second verse. With eyes so dilated, I've become your pupil. Things that would dilate your eyes. A drug, a disease, love. The word poison in the next line makes me think of a drug. But the poison apple also brings to mind Snow White and her stepmother. And that's another negative mother reference. Snow White learned she was unwanted. Her stepmother could not love her. The apple her stepmother offered her appeared to be beautiful and delicious, but in reality, it would kill her. In this case, the other person, or love, is the drug or poisoned apple. According to Healthline.com, in response to the question, are dilated eyes a sign of love? Oxytocin and dopamine, the love hormone, have an effect on pupil size. Your brain gets a boost to these chemicals when you're sexually or romantically attracted to someone. This surge of hormones appears to make your pupils dilate. So, the object of his affection's eyes are so dilated that all he can see in them is his own reflection. This calls you back to the line, I don't care what you think unless it is about me. Her eyes are amplifying him. There is an imbalance in perspective. There's also a mirroring sense of movement in the structure of the writing, reflecting back and forth, like chewing and kissing is being passed back and forth. And the lines, The water is so yellow, I'm a healthy student, indebted and so grateful, vacuum out the fluids. I'd almost have to guess that it was originally, the water is so yellow, vacuum out the fluids. I'm indebted and so grateful, I'm a healthy student. And then he cut it and kind of made it into that passing back and forth sort of a feel to it. So this is the truth of the situation and the distortion of the reflection, and then the distortion of the reflection and the truth of the situation. Added to this is the droning tone used to sing the chorus. It's hypnotic. It's like a hypnotist saying, "Look deeply into my eyes." And I think it's perfect the tone he uses to sing, "I like you." To me, it's like someone who has lost their mind, all gooey and sloppy and under the other person's control. Infatuated. Before, we had the unbalanced dynamic of a romantic relationship where one person sees the other as a mother-type figure. Now we have the feel of a student-teacher type relationship. And again, that's not the best dynamic for a romantic relationship. I love the teacher reference in the double meaning of pupil, as part of the I or as a student. And the word apple surrounded by the words pupil, taught, and student might also lead you to think of something like apple for the teacher. But the words I and pupil coming before apple might also call to mind the idiom apple of my eye. When someone is the apple of your eye, they are your most beloved. More literally, they are all you can see. And this brings us once more to, I don't care what you think unless it is about me. I wondered where this idiom came from, and I thought it was probably going to be Shakespeare, but no, it's from the Bible, where it's used a lot of times. In Hebrew, it means little man of the eye, and it refers to the tiny reflection of yourself that you see when gazing into another person's eyes. You can see that you are their focus, and that is just so perfect for this song. Thinking of the poison apple, try to hold in your mind both the idiom, apple of my eye, and the image of Snow White's evil stepmother. What do these two things have in common? It's vanity, the potentially vain reflection of yourself in your lover's eye, and the evil queen's love of gazing at herself in the mirror. She was the apple of her own eye. It was all about her. This idea leads us back to the figure of the mother. Besides the evil stepmother who can't love her daughter, we have the dominant image of the mother bird feeding her babies with premastication. The song opens with one baby, and this one baby travels through a tube. The tube is the birth canal. The baby ends up in the mother's infection. In other words, mom's messy life with all her issues and problems. I don't care what you think unless it is about me could be taken as the mother only cares about how the child reflects back on her. Now, with the idea of the birth canal in our minds, we can look ahead to verse 2. We can see this time that the eye mentioned in the first line is only a symbolic eye. Besides the eye, something else that can dilate is a woman's cervix before giving birth. Symbolically, the shape of the vagina can be depicted as an eye. When the cervix dilates, the baby's head will begin to pass through. At this point, the top of the baby's head would be seen as becoming the pupil. At the bridge of the song, just after the squeaky sounds, we hear water sounds and a muffled voice. This is the baby in the amniotic fluid. Amniotic fluid is a clear, slightly yellowish liquid that surrounds the unborn baby. The water is so yellow. The muffled sounds of a voice are how the doctor preparing for the delivery might sound to the baby. The music is intense. Something is coming. Something is about to move. Then there is a sort of air sound and a suction sound. This is vacuum extraction delivery. This is when a suction cup is applied to the baby's head in the birth canal, so to vacuum out the fluids. Then the movement really begins. It's focused and moving fast. No turning back. The music gives me the sensation of moving through a tunnel with a light at the end. And then that scream. The scream of the baby as he enters this world he knows nothing of, leaving behind the safety and connection of the dark womb where he was as one with his mother, now a separate being on his own. Maybe this whole section of the song is so cathartic because it's kind of a reenactment of birth regression therapy. That's a kind of alternative therapy you might have heard people talking about on daytime talk shows back when this song was written. Under hypnosis, a person relives experiences in the womb in order to experience emotional healing and to help with their current relationships. I don't know, but there's just something so satisfying about this section of the song. Now I'd like to take a quick look at the yellow water phrase. If you remember, I said the tube could be seen as the esophagus leading to the stomach, and love could be the infection or a kind of upset stomach feeling. Yellow water could be like bile, stomach acid, pus juices, or infection that needs to be drained. But what he actually needs to do is to be healthy is to drain all of her out of him. Or you could go back to the idea of a distorted vision of reality. The reflection you see of yourself and your relationship is not clear. Your perspective would be like looking through yellow, dirty water. And I see that as a theme in some of Kurt's other lyrics. The lighting and perspective you view a situation from can potentially obscure the reality from you. Straying off for a minute, this is like the allegory of Plato's cave. A cave where some men were chained to face a wall for their entire life. Behind them was a fire that they could not see. They were only able to look forward at the shadows cast on the wall by this fire and hear the voices of those from outside the cave. To them, this was reality based on their only perception. But it is not an accurate representation of the real world. The shadows represent just a piece of reality. The objects outside in the sunlight represent the truth that can only be perceived through reason. This is like the baby being born. He's about to learn that he didn't have the whole picture of his existence. Imagine the shock and maybe even terror as he emerges into the light. It's a new reality, and symbolically, a newborn infant's cry represents taking responsibility for your own existence. Immediately after Kurt's scream, the music becomes joyous and triumphant. It makes me feel hopeful. A healthy baby has been born. Or a healthy student. Grateful and indebted to his mom for giving him life. He now has her infected life as a model to learn from. I read that an early working title of the song was Formula, and I think that is so cool, because it could either be formula as in what you feed a baby, or it could be formula as in the definition, a list of ingredients for or constituents of something. So in other words, the formula of the narrator's relationships. This is what I personally make of this, and you don't have to agree because it's only based on the feeling a scream gives me. I hear Kurt scream and I think of the baby, but I also think of the painting The Scream, an awakening of consciousness to your own reality. I hear these things in a scream, but I also hear him going beyond this and coming out joyous. I hear the idea of amor fati, the love of your fate. Nietzsche said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati. The one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it. All idealism is mendacity in the face of what is necessary, but love it." He also said, "I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things. Then I shall be one of those who makes things beautiful. Amor fati, let that be my love henceforth. I do not want to wage war against what is ugly. I do not want to accuse. I do not even want to accuse those who accuse. Looking away shall be my only negation. And all in all, and on the whole, some day I wish to be only a yes-sayer." A yes-sayer is taking responsibility for your own existence with a scream. It's continuing your performance when your crappy guitar malfunctions yet again, so you drop it to the ground and give the best performance of a scream ever heard. There's a Kurt quote, but I'm not sure if he really said it. I've seen it on too many memes at this point to know anymore, and I couldn't find where it originated from. But the quote fits. It's, "Wanting to be someone else is a waste of the person you are." This is amor fati. This is accepting yourself. This is realizing you had to be who you were to be who you are right now. And you have to accept who you are right now to move forward to a better version of yourself in the future. Amor fati is associated with Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence. That is, over an infinite period of time, everything reoccurs infinitely. Or as in the case of this song, the narrator has this burst of awareness that the sickly codependent mother-child relationship is mirrored in his adult romantic relationships. He has to accept this to change it in the future, and living by amor fati, he can say, "I'm so lucky to have met you," with eyes that see the bigger picture. Did I go a little overboard? I might have gone a little overboard. But the greatest works of art, I feel, are only enhanced when you can put other works of art and things of beauty next to them, allowing them to shine brighter and their depths to become more visible. So do I think Kurt knew about the meaning of apple of my eye or what it meant in Hebrew? Do I think he was thinking about Plato's cave or Nietzsche when he wrote that song? I don't, and it doesn't matter, and I have no idea. I, myself, personally, can offset it with these things to get deeper meaning and beauty for myself. And I hope you enjoyed the video. This was a new type of video for me, but I had so much fun making it, even if it was ridiculous. So thanks for watching. Maybe I'll see you next time.
If you see this ghoul, play it cool.